What if I told you that the most revolutionary discoveries that shaped your modern life weren't born in the gleaming labs of world-renowned scientists, but in messy basements, cluttered kitchens, and makeshift workshops? What if the technology in your pocket, the food on your plate, and even the way you heal from illness could all be traced back to forgotten experiments that almost never happened? Today, we're diving into the secret history of science, the accidents, the obsessions, and the so-called failures that ended up reshaping the entire world. These aren't the stories you memorized in school. These are the untold miracles hiding in plain sight. And by the time we're done, you'll never look at your daily routine the same way again. Let's begin with something you probably did this morning without even noticing. You picked up your phone, and that bright, crystal-clear screen lit up instantly. Smooth, flawless, alive. But here's the twist. This dazzling display exists because one man got obsessed with something that looked like colored oil in a dish. His colleagues thought he'd lost his mind. They were wrong. Back in 1964, George Heilmeyer at RCA Laboratories wasn't trying to reinvent screens. He was tinkering with a new type of amplifier. His tool of choice? Something bizarre called liquid crystals, materials that weren't exactly liquid and weren't exactly solid. Most scientists dismissed them as useless curiosities, too messy, too unpredictable, a dead end. But Heilmeyer couldn't let it go. Picture him hunched over petri dishes, muttering about molecular alignment, while his coworkers walked past shaking their heads. Then, it happened. By applying the right electric current, he realized he could control how liquid crystals bent light, switching from clear to opaque, from colorless to colorful. What he had just unlocked was the principle behind every LCD screen ever made. The first prototypes were clumsy and slow, barely showing faint numbers. Executives scoffed. Who needs this when dials and gauges already work? But what seemed like a useless toy became the beating heart of calculators, digital watches, laptops, and, eventually, the glowing device you're watching this on right now. From colored oil to a 150 billion global industry, proof that obsession with the strange can light up the future. But now, let's step into a different lab. The year is 1968. A scientist at 3M is under pressure to invent the strongest adhesive ever made. Something for the aerospace industry. Glue that could survive anything. He failed. Completely. What he made was so weak it barely stuck at all. His colleagues laughed, calling it the world's worst glue. But that failure is probably sitting on your desk right now. Spencer Silver's strange adhesive went nowhere for years. Until one day, Art Fry, another 3M scientist and part-time church choir singer, had a small problem. His bookmarks kept slipping out of his hymnal. He remembered Silver's glue and thought, what if weak is actually strong? He dabbed the adhesive onto scraps of paper. Suddenly, the first Post-it note was born. Even then, executives doubted anyone would buy fancy sticky paper. But when free samples were handed out in Boise, Idaho, people went wild. They didn't just use them, they demanded more. What started as a failure in aerospace science became an office revolution, changing how we organize, study, and even decorate. And here's the hidden gem. That same weak adhesive technology now powers medical bandages that peel off without pain, removable wallpaper, even delicate electronics manufacturing. Sometimes the most powerful ideas come from what doesn't work. Now, let's go back further, to 1928, when a messy scientist's bad habits cracked open a new era of medicine. Alexander Fleming wasn't trying to change the world. He was just messy. His lab was a jungle of unwashed dishes and scattered cultures. One vacation, he returned to find one of his bacterial samples ruined by mold. Most people would have tossed it, but Fleming noticed something odd. Around that mold, the bacteria were dead. Curiosity saved him from throwing history in the trash. He studied the mold, identified it as Penicillium, and named the strange bacteria-killing substance it produced penicillin. At the time, no one cared. For more than a decade, his discovery sat forgotten in medical journals, until World War II, when Florian Chain figured out how to mass-produce it. That contaminated Petri dish ended up saving millions of soldiers' lives and hundreds of millions more in the decades to come. Think about this. Before antibiotics, even a scraped knee could be fatal. Surgery was a gamble with death. Today, penicillin makes organ transplants, chemotherapy, and complex operations possible. One forgotten mold dish became the cornerstone of modern medicine. And if you think that's incredible, wait until you hear this. In the 1940s, three men at Bell Labs were simply trying to make phone calls clearer. They were tinkering with germanium crystals, searching for a better amplifier. On December 16, 1947, they built a tiny device that amplified signals without bulky, unreliable vacuum tubes. It was called the transistor. At first, it seemed unimpressive, a fragile little experiment, but that fragile device became the foundation of the digital age. From computers to smartphones, satellites to solar panels, radios to rockets, everything runs on transistors. Billions of them live inside the phone you're holding right now, each one a descendant of that crude little experiment from 1947. These stories have a hidden pattern, one that's easy to miss but impossible to ignore. The experiments that reshaped our world didn't start as grandmaster plans. They started as obsessions, failures, or pure accidents. A strange liquid, a weak glue, a contaminated dish, a fragile crystal. None of these looked like revolutions at first glance. And yet, look around. Every screen, every post-it, every antibiotic, every digital device is proof that the world's biggest changes often come from the smallest curiosities. So maybe the real lesson isn't about the past at all. Maybe it's about us, right now. Somewhere in a basement, a garage, or a tiny workshop, someone is poking at something weird, chasing a question that seems irrelevant. And one day, that forgotten experiment might be the foundation of the future our grandchildren will call ordinary. Failure isn't the opposite of success, it's the doorway to discovery. The question is, who's brave enough to walk through it? If these forgotten stories fascinated you as much as they fascinated me, smash that like button so more people can discover these tales of accidental innovation. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. We'd have only just begun uncovering the hidden history of science. And here's my challenge for you. Drop a comment below and tell me about a time when failure in your life turned into something unexpectedly good. What's your forgotten experiment that changed everything? I can't wait to read your stories.